Fungus is a living thing, as you know, and it's doing its little thing in there. Why it should choose to live in a lens, I really don't know, but it has done, and good luck to it. Hey everybody, thank you for checking in once again. Well, we've shot a lot of nice lenses on this channel, but I guess inevitably, if you buy enough vintage lenses, eventually you'll buy a dud. Eventually you're gonna buy one with some faults. It might have some dust in it, or maybe it might be a lens with fungus, or it might have some scratches on the surface. So the question really is, can you use lenses like that? Are they any good for getting a usable image out of, or are they just fit for consigning to the scrap heap? That's what we're asking today. Okay, one fault you may find with a lot of vintage lenses that you buy, many will have developed it by this time because they're very old, is fungus. And I bought this lens recently. This is what is it? It's a 135 2.8. It's the Optomax. They were a fairly well-known budget name back in the day. There it is, and you can probably see there it's actually got, you see those little shiny things inside it? Well, that is fungus. It's got little tiny little patches of fungus there developing, and each of those patches is spreading out from one central point, and that is one of the ways you can recognize fungus. They do often, where's it most visible? They do often form small patches that look kind of shiny or silvery, you know. That's one way you'll spot it. Another fault with this lens is fungus growing around the outside of the lens. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see that because it's not terribly visible, and that is one thing with all of these faults: scratches, dust and fungus. They're often not visible, so you have to put the lens under a very strong light to look at it. You know, if I point this towards the window and look through it, my goodness, I can see all its faults very, very clearly. But if I just look down it, you know, against a darkish background, I'm not going to see those faults, or I'm not going to see as many. So this one has got haze and fungus developing around the outside of the lens there. Now, this lens was described as good, and unfortunately, either the seller made a mistake or, you know, just wanted to make a quick penny. I don't know, but what I thought was, well, I'll clean it up. So I undid this first ring here, got the first element out. But unfortunately, the fungus is behind the second element, which seems to be glued in. I can't get that second element out. As this is a very cheap lens, I don't know, I don't think I'm really going to try anymore. I'll probably just give it to a charity shop or something, or I don't know, do something with it. But it's not really very much use to me as it is. It's you know, it is on its way to collecting quite a bit of fungus, and I can't really repair it. However, it does actually shoot quite nicely. I went out shooting with it the other day, and I really didn't expect much. It was a bright sunny day, and I thought, gosh, this thing is going to flare like crazy. It's going to catch the sunlight, it's going to wash out, it's going to be a total mess. In fact, it wasn't as bad as I thought. Even though the light was very bright, it didn't tend to wash out, and if I kept it out of the sunlight and made sure that no light actually caught the front element, you know, no strong rays of light, instant rays of light caught that front element, it wouldn't wash out. If I was directly on a subject with nice clear lines, nothing coming this way to you know, this way in from the side to wash it out, or from the top to wash it out, then it's fine. Actually made some quite nice images with it, but in sunlight it washes out very, very quickly. Now, it's a cheap lens and it probably would wash out quickly in sunlight anyway, even when it was new, but take it from me, it's going to do it far, far worse with all that fungus inside it, and especially with the haze at the edges. That's really what's going to lower the contrast in in those situations where you catch a ray. That's what will lower the contrast on this lens. So fungus, a little bit of fungus like there is in this lens, it's actually okay to shoot if you're careful with it and you make sure you stay in light that doesn't just catch that element at the wrong angle. It tends to retain its contrast. However, a lens with fungus in it is not long for this world. Fungus is a living thing, as you know, and it's doing its little thing in there. Why it should choose to live in a lens, I really don't know, but it has done, and good luck to it. It's doing its little thing in there, and it will only get worse. That's the point. It's a living thing, so it's growing, and it's only going to get worse. So this lens, I'm afraid, really isn't long for this world. And if you do get a lens with fungus in it, a little bit of fungus in it, yes, you can shoot it with a bit in it, but I'm very much afraid it won't just have a little bit in it for long. It will spread and spread and spread, and eventually your lens will be unusable. And don't keep a lens with fungus next to your clean lenses in the same cabinet, because it could very easily spread. So fungus lenses, if you've bought one, I'd say send it back. If you've got one that's developed a bit of fungus, you may be able to use it for a while until it gets too bad, and then I'm afraid it's going to need a jolly good deep clean. Right, the second enemy of lenses is dust, and this was a very dusty lens when I got it. This is a Jupiter 8, and it's actually, I should have learned my lesson. It's a little bit dusty now. It's got dust on the surface because I've just left it out in the open for a week or so. I really should have learned my lesson because I've already cleaned this lens of dust. Let's clean the front element. And this is one of Madame's makeup brushes. This is a nice soft brush. It does fine. You can use an airbrush or a paintbrush. Any soft brush will do the job. This one happened to be lying about. Don't grass me up or I'll be in trouble. There we are, just give it a nice little brush. And that's clean. So any soft brush will do. That's a good example of a soft brush. So this lens was full of dust when I got it. But the weird thing is, I didn't actually notice to begin with. When I looked through the lens, when I got it, everything looked fine, couldn't see any problems. I put it on a camera, put it on the Sony A7, went out to shoot, fine, no problems, until I was shooting in a sunny area. Suddenly the sun came out from behind the cloud, and I've got the lens mounted on the camera and I'm focusing it like this. And as I'm focusing it, I can see inside the barrel, as I'm focusing, I can see the dust coming in and out of focus as the sun highlighted it. So that was what made it clear to me that this was quite a dusty lens. So then I had a look through it, under a very strong light, and I could see that it was a really, really dusty lens. It must have led quite a hard life before it came to me. It must have lived in a very dusty environment, not been valued really for many years, just thought of as an old piece of junk most likely, and kept in an inappropriate place, where it's going to collect dust. So the only thing to do was to clean it, because dust, just the same as fungus, dust will degrade your image. It doesn't do it too much if the sun doesn't catch it, but if you shoot in strong sunlight, really your contrast will drop massively if you've got lots of dust inside your lens. So it should be clean. Now, luckily the Jupiter is a lens that can be dismantled with some care and a couple of tools. With a lens spanner, you can do it very easily. That's a nice cheap tool. So anyway, I got it all apart. Well, not all apart. I never dismantle any more than I have to. I always do minimal dismantling because I'm not a lens technician. I am sort of, doing it bit by bit and learning as I go. So I took it apart as much as I needed to, cleaned everything out and got it back together, and my gosh, what a difference it made. It just an incredible difference. Like night and day. Well, like a dirty lens and a clean lens, in fact. This is now a very clean lens, and it's actually one of, or possibly the nicest Jupiter 8 I've ever shot. I've shot loads and loads of these lenses, but this little silver body one from 1967 that had been kept in a really bad environment for years and years and years, when I cleaned it, gosh, this is my favourite Jupiter 8. It's a lovely, lovely optic. So dust, a little bit's okay, a lot, just the same as fungus, a lot will degrade your image very significantly, and so you really do need to clean that. Okay, the third fault we're going to look at that we may often find on a vintage lens is scratches. This is a lens with scratches. This is my, in some ways, very wonderful Carl Zeiss Jena Flectagon f4 20mm rectilinear lens. This is a really famous lens, a really sought after lens, and a really expensive lens. It's a fantastic, fantastic optic. It's one of those iconic optics from the days of vintage lenses that's, really stood the test of time and really stands out as the years have passed. Everybody wants this lens. It's hugely in demand. I was lucky to buy this one for 50 quid. I knew it had some faults. The description said it had a little fungus inside it, which it did. This big front element here, this beautiful big front element, it's very easy to get off. Just spin off the faceplate and off it comes. And I did in fact clean the fungus out of the lens. I was expecting a big improvement because when I first shot this lens, despite its wonderful rectilinearness, it gave a really, really dreadful image because it was just so fogged and so faded. There was very little contrast, and I could see why this lens had been sold very cheaply. It was a lens I bought more in hope than anything else, but I could see very clearly when I shot it, I could see why it had been sold so cheaply. So I cleaned the fungus out of this lens, and I was expecting some good results, and it was better. It was a little better, but it really wasn't as contrasty an image as I was expecting certainly from a Carl Zeiss Jena lens, and really from any lens. It did give a fairly washed out image. And when I looked at the surface of the lens more closely, I don't know if you'll see it on here. Maybe you'll see it on here. Can you see many, many, many fine scratches on that lens? Let me try and focus on it. Many, 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 many fine scratches on that lens. It looks like it's been sandblasted. It's clearly been in a really bad environment, not cared for, and just damaged. It should have, if it only had had a filter on it all that time, it would have been okay. But something's got on it. It might be chemical damage. I don't think so. Actually, it just does look like myriads of fine scratches on the surface there, and so unfortunately, yeah, it is a little bit of a mess, this lens. It remains a lens that will only shoot out of direct sunlight. If you try and shoot it in direct sunlight, the contrast drops unless you're very, very careful with it. You can shield it and that will help it out, but that just means that light's not hitting that front element at very sharp angles. It doesn't mean that you've actually fixed the scratches. The scratches are still lower in contrast. They're just not doing it quite as much. So what I'm going to do with this lens, I'm going to go nuclear on this lens. I'm going to take the nuclear option, and what I'm going to do is I've got a glass polishing kit. So I'm going to polish that front element within an inch of its life. I'm going to polish all those scratches out. It will take the coating with it. So what I'll end up with is an uncoated lens, but I think an uncoated CZJ f4 Flectagon 20mm is better than a coated scratched up one, and I'm hoping that gives me a better image, and I do think it will. And as I've said in the past, I would like to find somewhere, maybe an optician, a high street optician might be able to help with recoating this lens, but I do want to polish the front and see what happens. And when I do that, I'll let you know. I'll polish it on camera. I'll make an episode of it, and we'll have some before and after. If you'd like to see that, let me know if you'd like to see that in the comments box below. So when it comes to scratches, if you have thousands and thousands of scratches like this one, it's a dead loss. You're never going to get anything decent out of a lens with so many scratches on its surface element, or any element, in fact, as this one has. If there are just one or two scratches, it doesn't matter. If, for example, I were to take this lens out, if it were in nice pristine condition, and I were to take it out and carelessly knock it against something, bonk, so that the front element was scratched or even cracked, you're unlikely to notice any difference. One scratch, two scratches, even three scratches, I don't know, you get the idea. A small number of optical defects will not destroy your lens. You can still shoot a lens with significant scratches, a couple of significant scratches on the front element, or even a crack or two in the front element. It'll still work fine under most situations. But little tiny myriads of scratches, no joy at all. This one I've got to fix. So there we are, 3 examples of faulty lenses that I've used, and how those faults can affect your images and what you can do about it if they are affecting your images. What's the worst lens you've ever shot with? Do you have a lens with 1 or 2 faults and problems that you use, or has a lens that you've owned developed faults and you've continued to use it? Or have you had a lens that's developed faults and you fixed it? If so, let me know in the comments box below. I guess that's it from me for this week. Many thanks go to subscribers. Thank you. That's 3 thank yous, and many more. Hundreds of thank yous, thousands, over 35,000 thank yous for your continued support. Many thanks to all of you. Many thanks also to subscribers for your continued support through all manner of difficulties and obstacles. Thank you for your support. It is very much appreciated, and without that support, this channel couldn't do what it does in the same way. If you'd like to become a patron and support this channel, if you think, yeah, I like what this guy's doing, he's messing around with the old lenses, let's give him a little bit of support, that would be very much appreciated. And you can do that for as little as $1 of your Earth dollars per month, and you can do that over at www.patreon.com/Zenography. That's it from me for this week. If you're not doing anything too strenuous or difficult next week around this time, please do tune in for a spot more Zenography. Cheerio all.